better say good afternoon almost.
Yes, good afternoon.
Thank you for meeting us here at Citadel. We are in lovely island of Gozo. And to all the viewers, welcome to Wine Dine Combine, where the world of wines unfolds right before your eyes. Joseph, can you tell us more about yourself?
First of all, thank you for the invitation. It gives us an opportunity to talk about one of my all-time favorite subjects in the world, which is wine, especially wines from the islands of Malta and Gozo. So I've been in the business now for over 30 years. I started working for a local winery in sales. It eventually moved into marketing and communications, and have worked also with a number of importers, which then, throughout my career, gave me exposure to the entire world of wine. Because initially, my first impact was literally trying to sell wine in Malta, which is one thing. And then I had this massive exposure with some of the biggest brands in the world, like, I don't know, Antinori, Chaboulez, Mondavi, Penfolds, working with representatives
big
of the brand here, so that gave me the opportunity to now delve really into the world of wine. Took some studies with WDC as well, so that was also helpful, very helpful actually. But then the experience, the wine fairs, the visits, the tastings, for me the subject of wine is such an important one on so many different levels.
Plus it's vast, it's never-ending story.
Exactly. So you're always learning. Many people tell me, but you're an expert. I said, I really am not. And it's very difficult to be, because there are so many different wines, so many different styles, so many different techniques, approaches. So many people who are investing a lot of money in being creative and in being traditional. So it's such a wonderful wine. And I sometimes when people tell me, I don't quite enjoy wine, I say,
you didn't try the right one.
Exactly.
Catching the phrase though.
Exactly.
When we are talking about wines in Malta and Gozo, today we are in Gozo. Let's speak about history of wines both in Malta and Gozo as well.
Yes, I've recently been appointed brand ambassador for the wines of Malta and Gozo, which is something I feel extremely privileged to be working in, because as I said, I've worked with various wineries in Malta, but now it's all the wine is my product. All the wine produced here is something which, both in Malta and Gozo, is something which I want to represent. And it has given me an opportunity to look at the market not from the point of view of a producer, but from a more national point of view. And this is really a wonderful story that I have to tell about wines in Malta and Gozo. Earliest evidence dates back to the Punic times, so about 3,000 years ago, actually in Gozo. So that gives us an idea of what a long story wine has in our islands. That is evidence of wine production, okay? There could possibly be more, and we're looking at trying to find more, but we know for sure that 3,000 years ago wine was already being produced here. As you might know, Malta has been ruled by so many different rulers, each of which had an impact on our wines.
And they were trying to delete what the previous ones were.
In most cases, unfortunately. So, okay, we had 600, I think about 6 centuries of under Roman rule. That was very good, because the Romans were very advanced for the time in the production of wine. But then came 200 years of Arab rule, and Arabs had no use for wine, so the industry was neglected. So throughout our history, we've always had this shift from one ruler to the next, and then the Knights of the Order, where they did a lot for the culture of wine, but they brought their own. So we're talking that in the 1600s already, Malta, you could find champagne, you could find wines from Burgundy, you could find wines from Bordeaux, from Italy, from Tuscany, even from South Africa. We're talking of 1700s now. So just to give you an idea that Maltese wine was already, as early as that, trying to compete with some of the best wines in the world because, as I say, the Knights, being European, brought most of the wines with them.
Especially the ones that they favored.
Of course, and especially because Europeans tend to be very regional, so they want to bring their own, which is fine. And it has had positive effects on us because now we're exposed to wines from all over the world. But Maltese wine was always struggling. British rule, again, there was not enough interest in wine at all, in grape growing. So then, of course, we had phylloxera here as well. So that's another 1850, 1860. And then, following that, you have 2 world wars. I mean, who in a world war, in a small island like this, would be focusing on, oh, I need to take care of my vines. So, despite having had such a long history,
and almost bombarded country during the Second World War.
So it was a big struggle, and I really believe, as a Maltese person today, we are privileged to even have 1 vineyard, let alone the fact that we have about 4.2 square kilometers of land under vine. In general, that's the basic statistic. Produce 1.5 million bottles here, but we consume at least 3 or 4 times that. So there's so much to say. We have our own indigenous varieties.
Josef and Argentina.
There you go. There are studies on others. Historically, again, there were hundreds of grape varieties here in the past, but over time, unfortunately,
yes, they got lost.
Yeah, so but there are possibilities. It's still early days, so we can't really commit ourselves, but there are still early days in potentially actually certifying other varieties. But we definitely have our own. But apart from that, we're blessed with this. You know, I mean, this is the Mediterranean.
For the wine.
So the Mediterranean region is a region which has one of the most desirable climatic profiles for the production of fine wine. Regions in the States, in Australia, in Chile, in Argentina, or South Africa, they all claim to have some of their best wines coming from regions with Mediterranean type climate. If
there's one country, we cannot move from here.
If there's one country in the world that can claim to have Mediterranean climate, it's Malta and Gozo. And being surrounded by this mass volume of sea, this ocean of the Mediterranean, that stabilizes things a bit. So if we don't have the extremes. Yes, it's very hot, but we're not a desert. Yes, it can be cold, but we don't have extreme winter storms. So the extremes are kept at bay. So again, this gives our vines enough time to ripen their grapes, and it makes our land suitable for such a vast array of different grape varieties. You will know, we have Merlots, Cabernet Sauvignons, Chardonnays, Syrahs,
Cabernet Franc.
I heard
about Petit Verdot recently.
Verdot, Viognier, and others. So again, we have our indigenous, which is fine, and we're happy with that, and we're working on developing that further. But we can produce a very vast range of styles of wines, and I think this makes these little islands here something which is, for a wine lover looking for something different, looking for a new experience, this is really it. And we don't produce enough to export. There are some wineries that have some successful attempts at exporting, but not a lot, no volumes at all. We don't produce enough volume. So technically, if you want to try wine,
we drink it here.
You come here. So, and what better place to be?
True. We are overviewing half of the Gozo Island from this point.
Yes, and part of Comino and part of Malta. So.
Actually, if we go around, we can actually have 360 degrees view of the Gozo.
Look, I think this is the story I told you about wine is, of course, entwined with the story of Malta. So it's one whole history with different aspects.
We're still unfolding it, though.
Exactly, and we're still discovering certain things. But here, I think this shows the resilient character. That, again, being a small island, on paper, I mean, this should be easy to overrun, easy to take over, and yet the resilience was here, the resistance was here. And again, that mirrors the situation of our vines, because if it were not thanks to the resilience of the Maltese farmer who kept growing vines for himself and for his family, and maybe some friends, slowly, we would not be here talking about Maltese wine. And again, if we didn't have fortifications like this, we would not be here talking about Malta. The average size here is about 1 hectare of a vineyard. It's about half a football pitch. So our vineyards are little patches. That makes it a lot more complicated to pick, to harvest, which is the same thing, but to take care of, because there's absolutely very little mechanization. All grape picking is hand done here, because again, since the vineyards are so small, there's no
some of them hard to reach as well.
Very hard to reach in inclines, or literally some are almost inaccessible except for the farmer himself.
For industry, yeah.
So it shows an element of character that, and vines are not easy. And if something happens in your vineyard and you lose your fruit, you've lost a year. You have to wait until
which
next
happens
harvest.
a lot.
Of course.
During the dry periods, during the very heavy rains as well in the
So
autumn.
the risks are great, and I think really it's thankful to the resilience of the Maltese people, and as well this. I think here, there's an element of grandness. I find that here and Medina as being, so spectacularly beautiful.
Even though being very small islands, Gozo and Malta have their own dock in IGT as well. So
it was established in 2007. However, we already had in the 60s we had our own Wine Act, which was a wine law. This led to a very interesting development towards the beginning to mid 80s, when our market was starting to offer plenty of New World wines. So wines from Australia, from the US, Chile, Argentina, South Africa, the New World, coming in at very advantageous prices, very attractive labeling, colorful, different to what we were used to from Europe. So volume started to increase in terms of importation, and local wines were struggling. Two main wineries in Malta decided to do something which was one before the other actually, but close to each other, to do something which was completely unorthodox. Since we realized that with what we knew from Josef Bonello was not going to be enough to produce wines of such intense fruitiness as we were receiving now from the New World, Josef Bonello were a little bit more subtle, a bit more soft. What are we going to do? So the decision was taken, produce the wine here from grapes grown in another country. Technically illegal, in as far as a DOC or a legislation goes, because it needed to be sold as a table wine. But this was a very, very bold decision, which in my opinion saved the industry. With this influx of New World wines, now we were producing these same grape varieties, but a product which is produced in Malta from Italian grapes. This was the case for a long period, but as I say, it saved, in my opinion, it saved the industry, because we started now believing a bit more in our product, in our capability to produce wine, and identifying that we needed to adjust and improve our knowledge of viticulture. Now we have a variety of styles, different grape varieties producing. We can blend and create other styles of wine. So this was a very important step. Now, of course, with wine, and on an international, particularly European, but on an international level, the most important feature of wine is where it grows, where the grapes grow. So if you talk of DOC or DOC or DOCG in Italy, Appellation d'Origine Contrôlée, they're always talking of origin. And we have our own denominazione ta origini controllata, which certifies now that the grapes, because since then now we have been planting vineyards, now we're talking of origin. Why is that so important? Because of course, even though the grapes from Italy were of very high quality, they were not grown in climatic conditions that are Maltese. They are grown, even though close enough, but in some cases, sometimes even from the north of Italy, which is completely different to here. So in terms of quality of the wine was okay, was fine, but identity. So this is where 2007 we established now that most of the wines you find today are all produced from grapes grown in Malta or Gozo. So you have DOK Malta, DOK Gozo, and IGT Maltese Islands, which means that you can blend grapes from both islands to produce, because IGT is slightly less strict in its regulations. It allows for a wider product, wider produce, wider range, more accessible even price-wise, because it doesn't have certain limitations which you need to abide by when it comes to DOC. But this is again very important for us, because this is DOC Gozo. So it is not only the grape variety, but a lot of it depends on where the grapes are grown. And we're maybe a bit too small to actually home in on regions within the islands. But that could be a future development.
Oh, I saw a couple of wineries doing single vineyards.
Yes,
so
exactly.
I mean, we are in on the way there.
Exactly.
Probably in some near future, as the winemakers start progressing, expanding, more people get into the wine industry, more people start to produce wine.
You're spot on, because kudos to these people who are, to all our wineries in their own way, are doing their best. Some focusing on more of a wide range for more of a mass market, others focusing a little bit, others going for different styles. There's a lot happening, and it is a good time to be in our islands, because there's always something new happening even within these two little islands.
With our show, we will try to actually show people how wine is not just when you see it on the table and in the glass and that's it, take it for granted. We will try to show the whole process during different episodes, especially here locally, how hard it's, especially for the small producers, to start growing, test, try, failures, positive sides, negative sides, terroir, change style, change watering, influenced by climate as well.
It's back-breaking, it's risky in terms of you need to make sure that you're harvesting at the right time. It's extremely hot, it's hard work. But thankfully there are many people, even younger people, so we have the established wineries, new wineries, they're all giving their own interpretation. And but as you say, you see the bottle on the table and you say, okay, you judge it there and then, I like it, I don't, I prefer the other, but just stop and think of all the work that goes into that. And it's still a matter of taste at the end of it, but the respect towards the product in general, and this is why I think wine is such an important product in our culture. Because it represents art, it represents science, it represents history, it represents culture, it talks about people, it talks about land and how this land has evolved and how the people have evolved. So it's a wonderful product. You drink history.
What is the current trend? What the people like to drink, what the people are after, and what the winemakers are shifting towards in later years?
Yeah, I think, as you say, wine is subject to trends, be it trends of wine styles or brands sometimes as well. And yes, there are trends which I think are becoming a little bit clearer. Until 5-10 years ago, maybe longer, I don't know, but definitely the idea of a good wine was a very powerful, rich, full-bodied, high alcohol, fruit-forward, these fruit bombs, these big wines that seem to have been very popular, still are, but in the past maybe a little bit more. Especially when we were talking of the New World that tended to produce these big oaky wines that were much what people wanted. Today, even here in Malta, we're seeing a shift to easier, softer drinking wines. A shift to lighter wines, to enjoy a bit more often. Again, keep in mind that high levels of alcohol are dehydrating. We are here in a lot of heat, so the tendency towards lower alcohol, easier drinking, refreshing wines is rather clear. And that fits in very well actually with Gelosa Argentina, because that's exactly what they can produce. So that's an interesting trend. But yes, I think in general, again, you're going to find people who love these big wines. Sometimes we used to talk of wines to eat rather than wines to drink. They're so rich, and that's fine. And sometimes you feel like something like that. But in general, I think people are looking for more elegant, softer, intriguing style. Some different maybe characteristics to look for, different aromas, but still seemingly on the softer, easier side. And this will have its impact on the future. We don't know when the trend, we could find other trends in the meantime. I mean, there's also trends of, for example, revitalizing cement, fermentation in cement, when this was what happened in the past, and then we moved to stainless steel and oak, slowly again now.
Natural materials
becoming more important, so we could find other materials. Keep in mind, there's a lot of research going on every day about different styles. So, and again, this is what is exciting. It's not a stagnant market at all. It's a dynamic market. There are some interesting wines, and this is why we urge people to try different wines. Don't stick to always the same wine. Try different wines, at the risk of maybe not liking it as much as you like another one. But discover new wines and make a note of what you're trying and enjoying, so that you know what you like. I mean, that is something which I think is important.
Given your role as a wine ambassador for Malta and Gozo, are you familiar with something that it's, let's say, that you can disclose at this point of time? Some plans?
Really any secrets. I know that there are at least 1 or 2 new wineries being actually created as we speak. There are some wineries undergoing again some restructuring. So this is always interesting because you need renewal. There are some wineries that are also taking a direction towards estate wines, away from the mass table wine market, but slowly focusing more on refined tastes. There's this idea, this research about new varieties that are indigenous. So other than that, I can't say I know of anything else which is particularly noteworthy. And what we surely are doing is also delving into our history. Because
I hope you will keep us in the loop, though.
No, for sure. I mean, actually, I honestly thank you very much, and enough for this opportunity, because I always welcome and relish the opportunity to talk about our Malta and Gozo reality in wine, and it's excellent, and keep it up, and I will definitely keep you in the loop.
Let's hope this will not be the last time we speak.
For sure.
Now let's go and have some wine.
That's a good idea.
With my bad hand.
Okay. Well, looks good enough to me.
That's my good hand. That's my good hand.
That looks good enough to me.
They know why they set me up here.